Yeah, I've seen protesters outside of Rolex headquarters saying like, "Give us independent Bucherer, free Bucherer," just outside the competitive, competition commission of Geneva. I just pictured Rolex going there with, like the wide eyes of a, newly born little lamb, all kinds of innocence in their sight, and they're like, "Oh, we don't want to do this. Please allow us to buy this huge retailer, but we promise we don't want to do this." At the same time, the biggest, most powerful watch brand in the world begins to own one huge, giant retailer, and through that, it gains tremendous leverage on its competitors.
Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. Yes, I'm back. I'm here. I'm still alive. Rumours of my demise were somewhat exaggerated. Thank you for
Were there rumours of your demise?
Well, one or two. Thank you for all the letters of support and calling for me back, particularly to my mother, which was frankly actually the only one.
Are you sure those related to your podcast absence?
That's right. Just letters from people saying, "Come home, speak to me, pick up the phone sometime.
Are you okay, Rick?
Talk to your mother." Everybody should talk to their mothers. There's this week's corner, advice corner, agony aunt corner, agony uncle corner even. Although maybe I can self-identify as an agony aunt. I'm not sure how that works nowadays. Anyway, the point is, speak to your mothers. So, gentlemen, well done for holding the good ship at aBlogtoWatch Weekly last week. You are now on different corners of the globe. Ariel, you are at home. But David,
Yes.
you're in Geneva.
Yes.
How is Geneva?
Rainy and moderately miserable, with a chance of...
So much like Glasgow.
Yeah.
AKA good watchmaking weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You did enjoy having a wee pop at Scottishness and weather and us just going indoors and inventing stuff last week. I did appreciate that.
So how come they don't make watches in Scotland then, in Glasgow?
That's a very good question. There is a little bit of a watchmaking history in Scotland, but not a lot. The only thing that's really here, it's actually slightly newsworthy, is anOrdain and Pollen. There are a couple other brands that are now based in Scotland, but they're the main two, and they have actually announced that anOrdain has merged or bought Pollen, which is an interesting announcement because they're all related to each other. I'm sure one half are married to the other half or something like that. So, but it's good. anOrdain, who have an enormously long waiting list, now have a baby brand, much like Rolex to Tudor or now Rolex to Carl Bucherer, but we'll come on to that later on, to actually supply watches with some of the same design cues through Pollen. So yeah, that's pretty much it in Glasgow. There's not really a lot, but it's a good point though, weather, snow, mountains, people, engineers. Not sure why we never developed a Swiss watch industry.
I feel like every country now almost has like their totem watch brand. Some has more than one, of course, but It's becoming trendy. Like you're a country, you don't have your own indie watch brand yet. Like what?
And you've not truly made it.
Yeah, so I feel like if you live in a country and you love watches, and you don't have a thriving microcosm of independent brands yet. The world's just waiting for the first one from your specific locale.
So, David, let's test that theory. Watch brand in Hungary?
They have them.
There's a few in Hungary. There's one called aBlogtoWatch, which is a more affordable version that actually has one of the better configurators and cool modularity to the watches. So that's very neat. And he's been doing really well, which is always great to see, and it really showed how many years it takes to grow a brand and just to get the hang of it, really. If you want to do your own thing as opposed to just slap something together from supply parts. And there's, of course, Aaron Bexei or Bexei watches, who's at the far end of the spectrum in terms of like ultra high-end watchmaking, where he makes all his components, his cases, his dials, his hands, the tools that he uses to cut his wheels, he decorates everything. Super, super ultra high end. I would say probably less than 10 watches in a year. So yeah, it's that's one of the greatest secrets in the world of watches. But he doesn't really need to advertise at all because he's sold out for into eternity basically.
And Ariel, who would be considered the definitive American brand at the moment?
America has so many businesses. I would say that we're, a little bit different here because we have everything from the major corporate owned companies still, the we have, of course, the Movado, and we have Timex and Fossil and Shinola, and then, of course, we have the very small ones. Josh Shapiro here in Los Angeles came out with a watch recently that I shot, which he claimed was the first sort of fully made one here in America. So now we've returned to the status of being able to make pretty much every single component, as I understand it, here in America. And this has been a push for more than 20 years now, where all these independent parties on their own have said, we got to build watches in America again. So I would say that American watchmaking is actually quite advanced. I'd say that the UK has had sort of a similar resurgence in a slightly different way. I actually think that I wouldn't call it a fight, but to compare the American watchmaking industry and the British one, or just the UK one in general, right now is interesting because they both very fervently want to develop it. They both have a lot of brands, very different types of entities there. And again, you look at Watches of Switzerland, which is sort of a UK based thing. So there's really, really big names in the watch industry, and much smaller ones. Again, it's not really a competition, but for me, these are the two markets outside of Asia where there's sort of the most experimentation.
Who are we missing? What countries do not have a watch brand? And then let's go there.
Myanmar.
And make one. I think Myanmar's a fair get. Zimbabwe,
I don't know why that came to mind.
Do you think Zimbabwe have a watch brand?
They need one. I think they need one.
You think that what Zimbabwe needs above all
There's
others,
not
other than a
enough
working
African
democracy, is a watch brand?
aesthetic in there. There's a lot you could do with it. I'm just thinking from like artistic perspective, what do we not have a lot of? And I just imagine really crazy things. The Gerald Genta, the Gefika, was apparently designed by him when he was on safari in Africa, and that inspired him with that one.
Okay.
That whole subcontinent, there's all kinds of stuff down there. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of countries. I mean, we could name a lot. I think that what's been interesting for me is in Eastern Europe or other parts of Asia where there's all these countries that are now starting to have their own little brands there and things like that. That's exciting for me. It's almost become like having your own little fashion company where we used to take a huge investment to make your own line of clothing, and that's become democratized. And in a similar way, it has been with watches. And it's not a lot of it's very good, of course, but it's great to see that so many people are dabbling in it.
So well done to all those countries that are continuing to make crap watches. Anyway, right, talking of, well, not really talking of that, Ariel, we thought we'd do a section where the Big Cheese talks about the Big Cheese news story of the week. So that is you. There is only one Big Cheese news story of the week, which is clearly Moonshine Gold coming to the mission to Neptune. So
thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Other than that, I don't think anything's happened in the watch world this week. I think it's just more Moonswatch is all that's going on.
There's been a lot of watch releases. Come on. There's been a lot of watch releases.
There has been a few. And there's been one particularly outstanding piece of news about a certain takeover. So why don't you take us away? Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so very abruptly, Rolex announced that they had acquired Bucherer. They sent out a message, and we've written about this on the website, and I've actually done some interviews with some members of the media who I think will be quoting me about this. One of the things that I think is important is that despite all the amount that's been discussed about this, not a lot of people seem to have analyzed it in a good way. At least that's what I'm hearing, that our aBlogtoWatch take is probably one of the only nuanced takes on what all this means. And the message from Rolex was very simple. Essentially, we have acquired Bucherer, but nothing is changing at Bucherer. They talk about how there's a long relationship between Rolex and Bucherer that has gone, for like over 100 years, and how all the parties, meaning Bucherer and Rolex and the employees, discussed this and decided this was for the best. Rolex is obviously a watchmaker, and part of the group is Tudor. Both of those brands are distributed by Bucherer. Bucherer is a line of watch retailers. They purchased the Tourneau group of watch stores in the United States about 5 years back. And they also have some brands. They have their Carlef Bucherer watch brand, and they also have jewelry that they produce, which is sold inside of the Bucherer stores. So Rolex has just cleanly acquired There was probably sort of a money component there, but they didn't discuss all that. And the big question is, why did this happen? What does this mean? And I think what's one of the most important things to recognize is this is not Rolex seizing a business opportunity and being like, wow, we can now take a lot more control of retail. We now have an ability to get more margin. This is not what Rolex is thinking. Rolex, in my opinion, did not want to do this. Rolex did this in sort of a quasi bailout because I think they were concerned if they weren't going to control Bucherer, who would? I do not know why Bucherer was unable to run itself. George Bucherer, the senior member of the family who apparently was running the company, could not find a successor. This is a confusing situation. You would imagine that a company like Bucherer, if it was earning money and it was solvent, could promote from within, could hire an external leader to help the company. That is by no means unprecedented, but that they didn't do that raises a lot of questions. And you have to imagine that there was some reason that was compelling Bucherer to sell or seek outside money. And Rolex probably saw themselves as being the most stable of those options, right? There probably wasn't someone else within Switzerland who was interested in acquiring the Bucherer group along with the headaches and costs. And any external parties like private equity probably would not have been able to maintain it in a way that made selling Rolex and Tudor watches nice and stable and predictable and clean like Rolex wants. And because there are so many Rolex watches to go to Bucherer, and because this is a company in Switzerland and they're very concerned about Swiss jobs and saving face and reputation, my belief is that Rolex came in honestly almost like a temporary guardian. I don't see them wanting to have too much official ties to Bucherer. They've mentioned several times, so they don't want anyone to think that there's changes going to be made, either in terms of the management or that there's going to be any preferential treatment to Bucherer stores when it comes to Rolex. Rolex has a lot to lose here, an enormous amount to lose, because they rely on the enthusiasm of their network of third-party authorized dealers to support the production runs of their watches. They rely on these stores owners from all around the world every single year to contribute a lot of money in the form of down payments on watches that later come and are sold to their clients. Rolex has specifically said, we do not want to have all that investment come from us. We want that investment to come from a third party. That is a de-risking situation. It lowers our exposure to these investments, and that is how they want to operate. Purchasing Bucherer only to absorb more of that risk goes entirely against the way that Rolex has been set up from a business perspective for a very, very long time. So again, strange situation. Rolex did this, in my opinion, because they felt that it was they were the only ones that could allow for a safe transition, and they didn't want there to be anything disruptive in the industry that could undermine faith or confidence or the business practice of selling watches in what they see as an ethical way. And Bucherer has definitely been, among the cleaner places to buy watches and things like that. So that's sort of it. And I think the last thing to mention is that the Swiss anti-competition board is looking into this. This is the type of merger that triggers sort of a monopolistic concern. They do have to rule on it, and there could be limitations on the purchase or various types of restrictions and things like that. I don't think that they will cancel it out flat out, but we will see sort of what happens. And again, because this was probably a relatively hasty move in the scheme of Rolex making decisions, I don't think that we can understand how this is actually going to play out. And I do think that Rolex is going to do whatever it can to maintain a clean, happy status quo with its network of authorized dealers, which are not related to Bucherer.
Well, I think my takeaway from it is it means that aBlogtoWatch is now the only major watch entity that doesn't also sell watches. Because Rolex was us and Rolex were the only ones that didn't sell watches. And now Rolex sell watches, so that just leaves us with the market leader, market dominance. It's just a good place to be. Good place to be. David, you're in Geneva. Is this the talk of what we'd call over here the talk of the steamy?
Yeah, I've seen protesters outside the Rolex headquarters saying like, "Give us independent Bucherer, free Bucherer."
They're writing protest songs.
Yes, just outside the competitive, competition commission of Geneva. I just pictured, as Ariel was saying, Rolex going there with, like the wide eyes of a, newly born little lamb, all kinds of innocence in their sight, and they're like, "Oh, we don't want to do this. Please allow us to buy this huge retailer, but we promise we don't want to do this." I understand that Rolex is at the point where whatever they do, they have very little to gain and a whole lot to lose. So any kind of venture that they do that goes outside of the realm of redesigning the Submariner once a decade is a potential for them to like lose big and win little. So still, it's odd to see, and maybe we will not even remember this in 10, 20, 30 years from now, how power finds its way always to the top, and how it concentrates at the top. And even though Bucherer didn't want to do this, and we say Rolex didn't want to do this, at the same time, the biggest, most powerful watch brand in the world begins to own one huge, giant retailer, and through that, it gains tremendous leverage on its competitors.
And an inside track, presumably. It has all the knowledge of what's happening in all its competitors, because it can see all these wholesale prices, all the discounts that are being offered of the market information. Mm-hmm. So at the costs, how things get returned, warranty positions, just how reliable is watch brand X, Y, and Z. Presumably it's easy enough. I mean, I suppose Rolex, if they wanted to look under the hood of something else, they just go to the shops and buy it, because it's basically only their watches that you can't get hold of quickly. Is there genuinely chat? Are there any good rumours circulating around the Geneva sausage purchase stands during the show, in the hotel rooms? That's
very, very early to ask. I mean, I've only been here for yesterday, and 4 days are still left to go, so you should ask me next week.
Okay, well, we'll ask you next week. Ariel, you seem to indicate that you thought this was done quickly. Do you genuinely believe that this has been in the last few months, or has this been on the cards actually for a very long time? With a Swiss leaders talking to Swiss leaders about Swiss things, thinking, if we can't do anything, we should just do this.
I got the impression that Rolex wanted to make sure that people heard it from Rolex first, in the sense that it would be so easy to come to incorrect conclusions about what these means. I mean, if you didn't hear about it from Rolex, that Rolex bought Bucherer, that would look mighty suspicious. So I think Rolex realized, like, there's no way of keeping this cat in the bag, and we have to announce it. As we know, as David knows, in the past, how many years we've been doing this, how many times does Rolex actually issue a press release? Forget, like, letting us know about new watches, just a statement.
Rare.
I mean, 3 or 4 times in the last decade.
Yeah, right about that.
This is not exactly what you would refer to as a common occurrence that is routinely happening. For Rolex to even do this, they do this. This is a long one in the scheme of their press releases. They're horrendously abrupt. I remember there was one about like, somebody dying and someone else being appointed. And it's like they hated the fact that they were writing it. They're like, oh, we have to make this awkward sounding. They combine it with like details, but also a lack of context. So you get this message from them that sounds like they're telling you the whole story. And you're like, wait a minute, like you spent all these words saying basically, we bought this company. We know that's a big deal. Don't jump to any conclusions. Wait to hear more. Have a good day.
Yeah, so we obviously saw the share price of Watches of Switzerland take a nosedive upon this announcement. Should we realistically, should we all just be going out buying Watches of Switzerland shares while they're priced low? This is not financial advice. Do seek qualified financial advice from your professional broker on the basis that this will all just turn around and it'll be business as usual. Or is this the start of a genuine market change that Rolex have decided, you know what, 10, 15 years from now, we could see ourselves only selling our own watches via our own boutiques or our own multi-brand stores?
I see no evidence that Rolex would want to move in that direction. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. Rolex knows that the mentality that they have, the Rolex culture, which is really good at a lot of things, is horrible at sales, okay? It's not a sales culture. It's not a persuasion culture. It's not a let's make you feel warm and cuddly culture. It's we're awesome. We're a wonder of the world. You should, working at Rolex is tantamount to working at the most important temple on the most important thing for the most important culture. Like it's not a like, let me make you feel great customer. And so what they've done as a result of that is recognize that the retailers themselves are the professionals at developing the relationship and persuading consumers to buy stuff. And that has been a model that has worked well. So Rolex creates the desire, the brands, the retailers purchase the items, and they sell those desirable things through the relationships they develop. So that's a long way of saying I can't see Rolex creating a sales culture that would do anywhere nearly as well as the sales culture that comes from pretty much any other company.
So what, if you were to list one thing that might change, that this purchase might change in the next year, what would it be? I mean, surely we can't believe that just nothing is going to change. Otherwise, what's it? Unless this really is just about two senior executives who know each other, who are pals, and it's about keeping Swiss things Swiss, and that's the main motivator. But surely, for a board of directors in Rolex to approve this, there must be some strategic purpose and plan, rather than just, we've got loads of money, these guys are for sale, let's keep it all in house, and that's it, business as usual.
So I think that what's probably going to happen, not exactly amazing news, but is not a lot of attempt at growth, expansion, new things. Companies that want to make money, that want to grow, that want to like meet targets, they're the ones that go ahead and be like, hey, let's build some new watches, let's build some new stores, let's get some sales going, let's get some promotions happening, let's think about Christmas and hit those numbers. Like, that's who cares about those things. Rolex never really seems to be in a rush to do a lot of things and is more interested in stable, let's experiment carefully. And so I see many years of Bucherer kind of seeming to stand still, unfortunately. So that is where I think the big takeaway is going to be. Even if Rolex isn't stopping it, nobody at Bucherer is going to do anything that requires big risk without like calling up Rolex and be like, guys, is this cool? And Rolex isn't going to say yes to anything because that's not how it works. Rolex is like, well, after we get 40 people to say yes on it, we'll get back to you, which happens years later. So I can't see Bucherer being able to do very much, either because of the direct instructions from Rolex of don't do anything, let's not bleed money, and just the fact that getting decisions made at Rolex is a very difficult process and obviously not ideal. So Rolex is going to have to set up a separation, an organization, a lot of stuff. And again, that's not happening overnight. So I see several years of Bucherer not doing too much. Let's say, what does that mean practically? U.S. expansion or expansion into other markets, probably not going to happen very fast. They will, obviously work with the stores they have, but anyone that said, like, it's going to be a battle for prominence in the United States between Bucherer and Watches of Switzerland, that's not happening anymore, okay? I don't see a bunch of purchases of stores or anything like that happening or new stores opening at all. So Watches of Switzerland now maybe has more an ability to grow in the United States if they want to, but if they need investment money, then that won't seem like something that other people want to put money into necessarily. So it's going to be a bit of a double-edged sword for them. So it's probably going to make certain types of investing and growth harder. There could be some upsides to it. We'll just have to really see how it plays out.
Do you think the consumer will notice anything? Like, do you think that it will seep out to the consumer that, see, if you buy it from Bucherer, you're actually buying it from Rolex because they own Bucherer. So go and buy it from Bucherer. That it'll just seep out into the marketplace. Oh yeah, you've got more of a chance of getting it from Bucherer because Rolex own them. So go and get on the waiting list at Bucherer. Do you think there'll be any of that kind of creep of marketing, of knowledge within the consumer that says, actually, why would I go to Watches of Switzerland to buy a Rolex? Why don't I just go to the organization that Rolex own to buy a Rolex?
It's going to depend on availability. If for whatever reason you can buy watches more readily at Bucherer, where the same watch will be difficult to get at Watches of Switzerland, yeah, that's going to be the behavior. We don't really know what's going to happen there in that regard, and we can only guess. My theory, like I said earlier, was that Rolex is going to do everything possible to make sure that the consumer doesn't see a difference. Why? So that all the other retailers that are not owned do not change their confidence and continue to happily buy Rolex inventory. So I think that there will be a lot of incentive not to make it seem any different or easier to buy Rolexes at Bucherer, because that is a danger. It's a confidence thing. It's related to the emotions of those retailers, and Rolex will want to do whatever they can to reassure retailers that you are still important. We're not going to siphon business away from you, and that's not why we've done this.
Good. Well, David, you can come back to us next week with some juicy rumours and gossip as to what everybody really thinks is going on. There's going to be something. There's going to be something that goes round the doors of the Geneva hotels late at night. So do keep your ear to the ground.
Yes.
And report back next week. A brand that is maybe a few steps ahead in some ways about selling its own gear is Audemars Piguet. And Audemars Piguet have some new releases out this week, which has been reported on the good ship aBlogtoWatch by our very own David Braddon. David,
yes.
What do you think of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak? Apart from the length of the name, all right, okay, I'm going to need to take a breath again. Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 1017 ALYX 9SM Matthew Williams designer watches.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting ones. It's funny because this is one of those things that I can add to the expanding list of things that make me realize that I'm getting old. It's like making a sound when you sit down, or taking like a handful of pills for the proper functioning of joints and stuff like that. And this is another thing that made me realize that. Why? Because when you grow older, you lose this ability to intuitively and innately understand at first sight what the youth is doing. So here, for example, this does not make any sense to me. I can't even tell, like, is it like 1017 ALYX 9SM, or is that supposed to be like converted into Bitcoin and read backwards and then it makes sense? I have no idea how to read that. It doesn't make any sense. Neither does this exercise. And then you look even deeper into it, and then you realize that there is this even greater disconnect in the sense that this whole thing just looks stupid, including the campaign. So, and my favorite example is this. There's this officially provided picture from Audemars Piguet for this release, and this includes, and this is, I think it's hysterical. It's basically, because I was trying to realize like who the target audience is, and I say that it is the sort of person who wears a body-tight white mesh long sleeve, sits in cheap plastic garden furniture with a solid gold watch on the wrist, has an analog picture taken of the act, has that photo developed on paper, and then takes a digital photo of that analog photo. It's the most repulsively try-hard, trust fund baby, hipster nonsense that I've seen in a long time from an established luxury brand. And it's just so off in so many ways that I feel like, sure, I'm happy if brands, explore their limits and stuff like that. But this is some sort of a desperation in a sense. I'm not sure why the Royal Oak was the right vehicle for this. Why not do something crazy cool with the 1159? Why is it that the Royal Oak is the watch that's been carrying AP as a brand as a whole on its shoulders, while all other collections have died off? And then at the very end, you still see it in 2023 worn by someone who's sitting in cheap plastic garden furniture. The whole thing is just like, please let the Royal Oak just be, and just find another way of like being AP and being hip and being cool. And that's my rant over.
Good. Nice rant. My particular favourite photo is the one where it's attached to a keychain with a bunch of steel keys. That is the
I was just looking at that.
Yes.
It's the most ridiculous picture of a watch. I mean, that's... Yeah, if somebody doesn't make a meme out of that...
It's educating you how to care for your fine gold watch. This is how to prevent scratches, and this is how to properly carry it. Didn't you know that?
I would actually like to buy one of these, attach it to a key ring like this, and then complain to AP as to why they've encouraged me to do this, because it scratched my watch, and I'd like a new one, please. This is effectively saying that this is okay to do.
Oh yeah. This watch weighs at least half a pound. Let's just put it that way. So what I want is it to dangle from my keychain at all times. And every time I open my door, you just hear the solid gold Royal Oak just dangle and just beat against the door and other keys and just return to AP and say like, okay, can you polish this out? Will this buff out? and yes.
None of this surprises me. So we know that the people that work at these brands, especially the people who come from sort of... we'll call it the French side of luxury. They love the idea that someone takes their thing and makes art out of it. They just love this idea. Oh my God, there's an artist somewhere that people like that wants to make art with our thing. They want to make our iconic object beautiful. By all means. So as long as that artist, they don't have to have talent or anything like that, as long as they have a following, and their promise is your thing will be adapted a little bit and turned into art, that's like enough. Like, you had me. Like, if you're a watch enthusiast, there's a bazillion ways of making fun of this, especially given the fact that, like, I mean, this was like a fashion. You remember like 15 or 20 years ago, David, there was all these like fashion quartz chronographs. It was really cool to like not have markers. Like, what was that one company that did that a lot? They made such big, it started with a V. Like Void or something like that.
It does remind me of something. It also reminds me of like
early Void what?
I don't know. I know also MVMT and a bunch of others. It's like a big brash polished watch that's oversized and looks kind of weird and is illegible.
Maybe it's not Void. I don't remember what it was. There was some brand that just did this all the time, and I just remember thinking like, yes, it's cool, but it's for everyone. It's not really a watch. So yeah, I mean, this is just Audemars Piguet being like, oh, you want to make fashion art out of our thing? Yeah, do whatever you want. It doesn't upset me so much as it does just kind of like remind me that, you know, following Audemars Piguet as an enthusiast looking for horology stuff is like not a good idea. This is a jewelry company now. It doesn't look like jewelry in the way that we think of feminine stuff, but it's a men's jewelry company. That's what Audemars Piguet, for the most part, has become. There's nothing per se wrong with that, but it's not like a watchmaker. Remember back in the day, we're like, you know, Bucherer, that's a real watchmaker. Like, that's sort of what I'm thinking. It's like it's moved away from that, you know, we're an old Swiss watch brand. They are that, but their marketing doesn't say it, and now they're painting this additional layer on top of that. So the marketing presence they're creating, like I said, in my opinion, is men's jewelry brand. Yes, they sell women's stuff as well, but it's jewelry brand with a male twist to it. And all of this sort of falls into that narrative.
Is it a nice watch? And then there was silence.
No.
Yeah, I don't. How is this pronounced? Is this 1017 Alex 9? Like, how are you 9SM? Like, how are you supposed to say this?
I have no clue. It's Alex Studio is the kind of designer also based in the hometown of Audemars Piguet. I don't understand the 1017 9SM thing.
Oh, so it's from Le Brassus. That's the thing. You always realize there's some Swiss connection.
Yokos.
That's right. It's always like a cousin because they're Swiss or they're from the same town.
Decided to spend multi-millions buying another Swiss company. Audemars Piguet decided to tap up the local industrial designer or, crew. They kind of used to have, I don't know what it was like, used to have crews in inverted commas that would go around spray painting walls in your local town.
I think the argument is this. It's, hey, AP, if I make any money from our relationship, a lot of that money will stay in the neighborhood. You okay with that now?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So, yeah, it's a weird one. If you think of it as jewelry, it's quite nice. If you think of it as a watch, it fails on a number of levels, mostly being able to tell the time. But there are a few watches where telling the time is quite difficult.
Well, you can make a game out of it. You have hit miss. Just be like, and on this watch, tell me after 26 minutes has elapsed.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think we make this the official watch of hit miss maybe. And we'll keep it as the official watch of Hit Miss Maybe until we understand how to pronounce the name or what.
Or you could
means.
use this as the official stopwatch for certain activities where you don't need to have any precision. And we're going to use our official timer, the Audemars Piguet, whatever the hell this thing is called. But bunch of letters and numbers.
Can anyone even remember if you've got three? As to which one's which, because it's not a standard. It's not always that the hour's the one on the left.
Part of the fun, Rick. Come on.
Is it 1 hour, 1 minute, and 1 second, or 1 minute? It's just.
Only Alex knows.
Imagine if your life depended on reading this accurately. That would be hysterical. It's like
or the 1 minute you need the chronograph. You're like, why did I buy this version?
We're returning to
how we've played that game in the past of name a movie that having a Breitling emergency would end the plot after 5 minutes. This is the opposite of that. This watching Interstellar or something like that.
I mean, it almost looks like the dials that came from the factory that you're supposed to take off and put the real dial on.
That's actually true.
It looks like an Hublot service watch. You know the Hublot service watch that everybody reads?
Yeah.
It looks like
the letters and numbers look
watch.
like something that consumers are never supposed to see, and the hands are just remember, this is a chronograph movement. Not that this is the real dial, but this is one of our chronographs, which needs a proper dial later.
Yeah. It's yours for 92. The top of the range one's 92,500 Swiss francs.
Look, in the world of buying expensive glass balloon animals for whatever they cost and all the other modern art out there, is any of this surprising? No,
not really. Good. Well, seeing as we've done that, we might as well. We've kind of mentioned some old favourite games. We might as well play this game. It's the one we always go to, the most reliable of all. Guess the
Monopoly.
price of the Seiko.
Oh,
So we have
another capitalist game.
we have a new release, the Grand Seiko SBGJ 275 and SBGM 253, 25th anniversary limited edition GMT watches. They're caliber 9Ss. So I don't understand why they released both of these at the same time.
Why do they have a mechanical and spring drive version of this movement? I guess whatever.
I don't. I've gone beyond. I mean, these are probably my two favorite Grand Seiko designs, like canvases for which they then decide to put a dial art on it that matches whatever they saw out of the window.
I have the old school spring drive version of this, and it is a fantastic watch. I think this GMT is a great thing, but I'm guessing that the prices are way higher than I last remember.
Okay, so
so this is a steel watch or titanium?
So let's go. These are, as far as I know, both steel. Well, let me just check that.
Oh, I have to guess the price on both, or is it just?
You can guess the price. SBGJ 275, which is the dive watch. Official retail price.
No, whoa, don't we have to guess? Oh,
yeah,
okay,
I was going to say, what is its official retail price?
11.
Okay, interesting. David, official retail price of the SBJ.
I was going to go with 11 too, so let's go with 12.
12, 11 and 12. Would you believe, gentlemen, it is $7,600.
How much is the other one? The other one's cheaper even?
The other one is $5,600 USD.
What?
This Yeah, these
That's
are
their high beat. I thought those were more expensive than the spring drive, right?
these are.
It depends, Ariel.
only-
It depends.
There is no rhyme, nor is there any reason.
They must
as
not
to-
find that the 25th anniversary of the Caliber S movement is just expensive enough. I don't even know why that's worth celebrating, but yeah.
So these, I mean, I'm a big fan of these watches. I do like the.
What is the 9S? Is that the high beats? I know the 9F is the quartz. What does the 9S even mean?
So the 9S, it would have helped had I done some research on this rather than just wanting to get to the punchline, which is nobody can guess the price of the Seiko. So
I actually like it when we're far off. That makes me think that someone there is trying to keep us on our toes. Thank you, Seiko. I mean, Grand Seiko.
So the 9S, is the 9S the mechanical?
Well, there's the
Yes.
mechanical, and then there's so I guess is it all
so the
high beat?
9S is the mechanical, and the 9F
That's the quartz.
is the quartz.
and then
there's a
spring drive is that something else?
So,
You'd think spring drive was 9S.
Yeah,
No.
I'm confused. I'm confused.
No,
If
9
somebody would like to
9S
explain it
9S
to us-
is hold on. Is mechanical. And the 9R is supposed to be the spring drive.
That's
So
right.
so hold on. So the S is the mechanical.
Yes.
The R is the spring drive. They
Or
didn't make the
spring
S the
drive.
spring drive for spring
Also,
drive.
S includes both 4 and 5 hertz movements. They're all S's. Just
Okay,
clarifying.
can we just tell? Can somebody just tell Grand Seiko to take a moment and sort it all out? Just like
Yeah, that's not
never
gonna
gonna
happen.
happen.
not going to happen,
No.
is it?
Yeah.
Never gonna happen. Never ever going to happen. These are lovely watches. I do
I like the
them.
camouflage blue dial. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but it looks like camo clouds.
It is the sea of clouds that obviously envelops Mount Iawati at daybreak, because of course it does. I have never known a geographical feature be able to look like so many things in all of my cream puff. This mountain must be absolutely remarkable for the wide variety of things it's able to look like at certain times of day. It's a chameleon of mountains.
There's a rule at Seiko now, and I think they don't know how to apply, but the rule is you can't just come up with a watch because it's pretty. You have to have a reason for it. And this is a real rule because, what we say is every watch should have at least one person that wants it to exist. That's really the rule, is there needs to be at least one human out there is like, I want that. But they've misinterpreted this rule so that you have to have an arbitrary rationale for every type of artistic decision, which is silly. So that's what ends up happening. Every type of artistic decision, they're like, okay, guys, it can't just be pretty. Oh, that kind of looks like that one architectural or landscape feature we haven't mentioned yet. Oh, the skyline of the city. Great, do it. That's what it is.
Do you suppose somebody's sitting with a bingo card of 5-minute intervals of the full day and, right, okay, look out the window at 9:05. What does it look like? We'll make a watch. Look out the window at 10:05. What does it look like? And you're only allowed to do that once. Once your 5-minute interval is, done, that's it. You're not allowed to use it again. So eventually we'll get to the end of interpretations of what Mount Iawati looks like at a certain time of day. I'm fascinated. I want to go out to Japan. I want to go out to Japan and sit in front of this mountain for a full day. Like, I'm just going to prop my eyes open with coffee and matchsticks and observe all the watch styles that I see in this mountain through
And as the sun sets, you're going to yell, I never saw the Grand Seiko! Oh, and as the watch sets, you're going to get upset because you're not going to see that view on the Grand Seiko one time. You'll be like, was I at the wrong mountain?
There's definitely some. Do people climb the mountain? Like, is there ever like a group of tourists going up in like bright, luminous orange day glow jackets for the weather that are climbing the mountain from a distance, and then what really needs like an orange streak through the dial to represent the tourists, or hot air balloons passing by?
I think that you're designing Grand Seiko watches for years to come. This is great stuff.
Hire me now. I think
That's good. They're gonna have an orange seconds hand and be like, "What is that?" Those are the climbers in their orange suits.
They're the
And people are like,
tourists.
"Oh,
That's the cable car that goes up. That's
yeah,
the
that's
jet
the gondola
flying
line.
past.
That's
What's-
the gondola line. That
what's
seconds
that?
hand is the gondola line.
What's that smoke? Well, that's the contrails of the airliners flying past.
That dent on the case that reminds you of climbing up the rocks."
Good stuff. Well, go and check out the article at aBlogtoWatch.com. There was some sad news this week. Ariel, you wrote an appreciation of Daniel Dreifuss, founder of Maurice de Mauriac. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the man himself and your relationship and appreciation of him?
Yeah, obviously that topic was going to come up. It's an emotional one for me because I did consider him a friend for many years, and I had known him since about 2010. He founded the Zurich-based watch brand Maurice de Mauriac about 25 years ago. And a few years ago, he passed the day-to-day operations to his sons, Leo and Massimo, who I knew from the time they were little boys. And he was really a maverick in a lot of ways. I learned a lot from him about good taste, about design, about the watch industry. He would really tell me a lot of stories about how things worked, whether it was gossip or just sort of explaining the process. Seeing his operation, he was always a few years ahead of the time. He sort of understood the importance of personalization, modular designs, casual sport watches, colors, a lot of the materials that became popular. I mean, he was ahead of the curve on all of these things. And it was an experience meeting with him. You know, he would always be at all the major shows, sort of in his corner somewhere, and meeting him was very gracious. He was always very welcoming, and he was very excited to show you things. He didn't show you all of his watches. He knew what you would like. He was very, very focused on the people that he was meeting with, and he made you feel very, very important. And I think that was one of the things that he was good at. He was both very talented in terms of design, but he knew how to make people feel good. And that was a very, very rare combination combined with his just natural tenaciousness, his entrepreneurial skills. Right now, as I'm saying this, you're showing a little video that Ed and myself put together with them in Zurich a couple of years ago, sort of a little commercial to them. And I'm really glad that it holds up. It shows him. This is a script that I wrote. And he's speaking, and this is really a big loss. You know, in the years that I've been doing this now, 16 years, there's been some people that have died that have been important. I mean, massive people, Hayek Senior, and a lot of very important people. But not, you know, as I've been doing this, you develop a lot of friendships, and this was someone that I will miss very, very much. And I have a wallet that he made that I've had in my pocket for a long, long time, and I always sort of think of them that way. And he's, you know, someone that I'll be thinking about. But it's men and women like this that have special ideas that add new things to the industry, and others take it and adopt it and maybe make it into bigger and brand it better. But these are the creative souls that make the watch industry, and he will be missed. And I hope that people can celebrate him and others like him as much as they can. David, you've had some of your own memories of him. Anything you remember?
Yes, absolutely. The incredible energy was something that I remember more or less unparalleled by anyone else in the industry. You know, he was ballistic. He would just go off like in any moment. And as you said in your beautiful article as well, you know, he'd be loud, high energy, just super focused on whatever was going on, very emotionally supercharged in a way that is unbelievably rare to encounter at any level, at any company in this industry. And so he really was this very special element to this industry that I will miss dearly. Even though I've seen him and met him only a couple of times, he's definitely left a very strong impression on me.
He was also a character in sort of the real sense. I mean, all of these watches, we hope at the end of the day, are characters. They have personalities, there's fun, but they're all created by people, and very rarely do we meet the people. I mean, Gerald Genta, for example, I unfortunately never got to meet him, but he was a character. He dressed a particular way, like he was a character, and this industry is full of stories of these characters. I mean, and you know, Jean-Claude Biver is another perfect example. Like, if you just see pictures of him smiling at an event 10 years from now, you're not going to have any idea what it was like to be in a room with him.
Very true.
And I think that's just so important, is that I don't know, what is it, 1 in 1,000 of the people who in the Swiss watch industry have this, but they're just loud and they're confident and they're funny and they sometimes say irreverent things, but it's like 1 in 1,000, and they're there and they make the watch industry go around and everyone follows them, but it's so freaking hard to be them. And these people are made. They're not educated. They're made. They have like a certain education, a certain background, just makes them perfect for this, and they stick in it because of tenacity, like no one makes it easy for them. They just love it. They just get addicted to this. And we get to see them trying to make their mark. Daniel Dreifuss tried to make his mark. Every time he came out with a new watch, every time he presented, the man tried to make his mark. And as people who are literally covering on this industry, reporting what it's doing, it was just so lovely to see that energy. And it was joyful to talk about that mark, talk about what he was trying to do, because he put so much passion into it. And when you throw this word passion all the freaking time in the watch industry, and here's an individual who almost single-handedly defines what we're talking about.
So yeah, go and have a read of Ariel's article and contribute to the comment section of it. Some very lovely contributions also in the comments. Okay, we will move on from that sad news to play Hit Miss Maybe. First up, we've done one Japanese brand. Let's do another. The Citizen AQ4. Where do these names? What is it this week with names of watches? The Citizen AQ4 103-16A black washy paper dial limited watch. The washy watch. I mean, do people not think about these things when
you're not even
watches?
laughing about the funniest part of the watch. This is the funniest part of the collection. The collection is known as Citizen the Citizen.
All right, okay. I mean,
it's literally called The Citizen. You see how it's referred to as The Citizen?
Yeah,
and when we met with
yes,
Citizen, we're like, oh God, why? I mean, I love these watches. They're so well made. They really are. This is a great collection. But when someone's like, so what is that? That's the Citizen. Oh, but what's the model? No, it's Citizen's the Citizen. And you're like, what? Yeah. What do you mean? Yeah, call it the Washi. No.
This is a limited edition, 350 examples, $3,800. Hit Miss Maybe, Ariel.
Okay, I'm gonna go with maybe, just because there's others in the larger The Citizen that for me are more sporty and what I want. This is like what I call the Japanese artistic dress watch. If you happen to have the black and gold and you like that kind of wabi-sabi, Japanese kind of organic thing, like this is perfect for you. But this is niche. When sometimes we laugh about like watches for the Japanese domestic market. This is the watch for the Japanese domestic. Anyone will like it, but that's what they had in mind when they made this. For if you like the overall design, the quality, look a little bit beyond. The Citizen is obviously launching with this, kind of fancy version of the Citizen, but it's what comes after this, which I think the enthusiast community is going to mostly get, excited about. And again, if this particular dial does it for you, it is great, but it's not the sporty one that I imagine having on my wrist.
Yeah, for me, this is a hit just because right now I'm into the whole black and gold thing.
There you go.
Really quite liking it. That I could do without the white date window. I feel it's a bit pronounced against the gold framing and the black dial.
It is a Japanese watch. It's very difficult to get them to get rid of the date window, and it does not happen with any ease.
David, what do you think?
It's a miss for me. But I cannot imagine how weird this would feel because it's gold coated or gold plated, but it's in titanium. So you have the visual heft of gold, but not the actual physical heft of it. So it's going to feel super weird. At least it certainly would for me. I like that, I like brands, I like it when brands experiment with dials that are asymmetrical, that have some sort of a pattern that is more or less natural. So that's cool. And as you say, I could do without the black on white date window. For $3,800, print a freaking different date disc and put like black over, like a gold over black or something like that, whatever it may be, just to add a little spice, because it's not that cheap of a watch for an eco drive, $3,800.
Indeed. Right. Moving along, hit miss maybe, Christopher Ward, the 1236 watch. This is another one. It's like the Citizen, Christopher Ward, the 12. What is it with all the thes? Is it just that the Swiss watch industry is
I'm okay
obsessed
with the. What I hate is one. Why does everything have to have one?
So, what about this? Is the smaller version of the new Christopher Ward 12 range. I happen to have one of them sitting here. I can report it is very nice. If a 36mm watch is what you're after, then I can highly recommend looking at this. So for me, this is a hit. But what about for you, David?
Yeah, this one, they just started drilling and this soothing. Can you hear that?
I get to hear it in the edit. So you've gone from living somewhere whereby there was a siren every 60 seconds I had to edit out to now it sounds like you're living either on a building site or in a menagerie because you clearly leave your window open and you get all the bird song.
They're drilling into the wall behind my head, so I guess I should move a little bit.
Are they hunting for you, or have they got an actual?
I don't know. I can't get your break just yet. I mean, I like this watch. It was long overdue for this to be 36. I'm happy that it exists in that size. Looks great. So it's a hit.
Hit for you and Ariel.
It's a hit in the larger form. This is smaller, and for people that want to wear that size, I prefer the larger one. I think that Christopher Ward has done a very nice job with the 12. I think that there's a little bit more way they can play with the dial. I like to see more experimentation, sort of the hour markers and things like that. But when I reviewed the larger version, I thought this was a pretty nicely done timepiece.
Yeah, so that's what it looks like. I'm holding it up to the webcam. That's the
36.
That's the 36. It's definitely a 36. Unlike the larger ones, which I think are 40s but wear slightly larger. This does wear like a 36, like a Rolex 36mm Explorer or something similar. But it is very nice. It's a nice weight to it. Bracelet's great in these. Yeah, just an all-round great watch if that's the sort of thing you're into and that's your kind of budget. So that's good. Finally today, Maurice Lacroix. The Maurice Lacroix Icon Skeleton Urban Tribe watch. So this is another fashionista type thing. I've teamed up with Urban Tribe. So for those that aren't familiar with this basically means that the entire case and bracelet are etched in Urban Tribe patterns. I have no idea what that means. I'm just reading words on a page, frankly. But I quite like this. What do you guys think, though? Hit, miss, or maybe? Ariel?
I think this is a hit because I've always liked this type of decoration. Traditionally, if you wanted to do something like this, it was very expensive and you had to hand engrave into the case, into the bracelet, and usually consumers didn't want to pay for that. I remember the maid-worn Rolexes where they did those engravings, and those were gorgeous, but very time-consuming, very difficult to do, and just a little bit too niche for the price point. But I always thought to myself, there's really something here. Now with modern technology, you can machine cut these things and have it look really, really good, and you don't have to have it be hand engraved, and that doesn't cost, nearly as much. So I guess I'm surprised that there hasn't been more of this. This particular design isn't to my taste, but the idea where you engrave these patterns, almost like tattooing and stuff like that on a watch, case, and bracelet, I've always loved, and the idea that you can have it less expensive through this, this milling process or this laser engraving process, for me, that makes it a win. So, the price point here is obviously a little bit more than their standard models, but I'd like to see more of this in the market, and it's really just a matter of getting it artistically to meet everyone's particular tastes.
Yeah, it is a bit like, as you say, a tattoo, so it's like a tattoo and a watch for those that are too afraid to go under the needle directly. A daily removable tattoo.
Yeah, it's like if you already have tattoos, it could be too much, right? Like if you have a tattooed arm and then this, It might be too much. But if you're like me and Rick, you have no tattoos, then this is great.
How do you know I have no tattoos? I mean, I don't, but how do you know?
I think we've discussed this, Rick.
David, what do you think?
It's a massive hit for me. I'm very happy that this exists. I know that these are very popular. I think that these things should exist because they help popularize the watches. These are cool as heck. I wouldn't wear this every day, but I could see, people out there, looking for something like this that's out there, that's nicely made. It's just fantastic. Hit for me.
Excellent. Well, that is us for this week. David, you're in Geneva in the midst of all that is Geneva Watch Days.
Yes.
What's in store today?
It's a lot of meetings today. I'm starting my day after this with Bulgari and checking out their novelties. There's been a bunch. There's one that's like $660,000 and it has like ancient Roman coins in it. It's a high jewelry piece. Technically, it's a bracelet with 2 tiny movements in it. I really hope to be able to see that. If not today, then this week. I wonder if that's going to be around. If it is, I will be sure to take pictures and go hands-on with it. Other than that, it's 2 Octofinissimos in carbon gold, which should be pretty cool. So checking those out, and then it's just running around Geneva for the rest of the week.
Good stuff. And Ariel, what are you up to this week?
Well, next week I will be traveling to New York, and then to Florida, and then back to New York. So I will be here helping from afar to cover some of the Geneva Watch Days news, and getting ready for a whole lot of travel myself. The aBlogtoWatch team has to make the very difficult choice, actually, at the end of the year of what watches we cover and what watches we don't, because once again, there's so many more watches than we can get, really have time to cover. Good problem to have, but it's actually sort of an interesting thing as we're not completely over, we start to plan how much of this amazing, photography that we've been able to acquire in these watch brands that we've met with can we actually get on the pages. So that's an interesting challenge.
Good stuff. Well, thank you all very much for joining us. Do email the show podcast at aBlogtoWatch.com if you have something you would like to contribute, or send us a message on Spotify. You can catch up with everything obviously at aBlogtoWatch.com, and we look forward to your company in a week or so's time. Goodbye.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. Catch you next week. Bye-bye.